Chayan, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hi, Ashu. Great to be here. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, Chayan, and excited about this conversation that we're going to have now, right? And that's largely because you are creating a lot of disruptive technology when it comes to workplace management, right? And HR tech in general. Now, this is a space which has been, which is possibly where the internet era in India, SaaS era in India, kind of started from, right? I mean, we've seen the Naukri.coms of the world. Um Monsters and many others, right, who've come in and who's tried to solve for this space, right? There have been many other integrators in the process as well, who built many systems, right? So this is a system which, and even from an organization standpoint, I think organizations were very smart enough to adopt, HR tech and SaaS solutions within the space the fastest, right? And they were more than willing to pay for it, right? So there are some very interesting positives about this industry, this subset of the tech industry, right? But simultaneously, this is also something where a lot of players have come up, right? Domestic as well as global, and that's made this industry very cluttered in many ways, right? To an extent, the pricing ability of businesses who are early movers has kind of reduced drastically, right? To an extent that this has become a very commoditized industry when it comes to say pricing, right? There are many free softwares also available now, right now. Many early stage companies are now kind of adopting to a lot of these solutions, right? So, this is, like I said, right? This is an industry. This is that segment of technology which has gone through many churns, right? It's been one of the oldest. Thus, this becomes very exciting because you're cutting it very differently. You're doing exciting numbers, which we're going to talk about through the course of our conversation, right? And you've raised one round, but you're largely, I think, building it with a very bootstrapped mindset, right? We're going to cover all of that through the course of the conversation, right? So before we start that, Chayan, right, I'd love you to give us a quick round of a background to yourself, to your team, and we take the conversation from there.
Sure, Ashu. We started Qandle in 2016. This is my second venture. My first venture was also in HR tech. It was in a related space. I ran that company for around 10-11 months. After that, we couldn't find a very good revenue model, but we were managed to salvage it. We were managed to sell it to somebody. After that, I started Qandle with my co-founder Himanshu. How we met is again a very exciting story. We are not friends. We did not meet. We are friends now. We were not friends. We had not gone to the same college, but we did have complementary skill sets, and we came together. It was a problem that we had faced in our previous organizations, and it was something that we wanted to solve. We have been cash profitable since March of 2020. There are a lot of things which are, I think, quite different about us. As you rightly said, that yes, we are building it in a bootstrap way, while a lot of our competitors are crazy about funding. Also, we are completely remote. We have a team which is completely distributed. We work out of our homes. I think you can also say that from the background. From where I'm talking. Yeah. So that way also we are different. In addition, I think we are one of the lean, like a very lean team. So we are just 36 people. And again, if we compare our size with some of our competitors, we would be like even less than 1/3 or 1/4 their size, right? But we are doing numbers and we are serving clients which are at par, if not more. And all of this is possible because we have built a product which is great, and we have this support and then customer success kind of a mindset, which is really helping us.
Very interesting, Jen. Very interesting, and I think working from home, you're really championing the cause. I think what the kind of optic that we've seen, especially in the HR tech space, right? I think there were a lot of softwares that are being used, right? There were a lot of SaaS tools that were being used, right? But I think organizations at large have realized the necessity of having a continuous tool, right? And I think and thus comes the willingness to pay for it, right? And I think when you say you're working from home, you're essentially championing the cause, right? You're essentially basically supporting what you are about, right? Making job easy and life easy for HR managers in organizations, right? Jen, now, like I said, right, at the outset of our conversation, that this is a very crowded space, right? There are many people who've been trying to solve this. There are legacy players which have also been there. With Qandle, what's the difference, right? When you're getting into the market, right? How are you differentiating yourself? Is this largely an ease of use that you're kind of marketing yourself with, or is there a different value proposition, right, which helps you communicate better and convert better Would love to understand that.
Sure, Ashu. So yeah, I would like to address the first part of your observation first. That absolutely, that exactly was our thought. That if we are building a software which we are selling by saying that this will help you do your work wherever you are from, whether you are remote or whether you are in office, and we ourselves are not able to work remotely with the same productivity that we are seeing in office, then it's kind of not being truthful to ourselves, right? Then we are selling something that we don't believe in. So we use our own software, and that is how we are able to manage our work remotely as well. And yeah, to the second part of the question, that yes, it is a crowded space, right? There are a lot of players. If you look at it from the outside, you would see that there are a lot of players trying to solve. But like, if we come to the demand side of it, right? First is this is one of the very few SaaS categories which is completely industry agnostic, right? Even like a factory or a manufacturing unit, they need an HR software. A company which is trying to solve for space, they, like if they are building rockets, they need an HR software, right? So it's completely industry agnostic. Everybody needs one. And also the second is, an HR software is the only software in an organization, of course, other than email, which every employee uses, right? Even email is like, when I think about it, blue collar employees will not use emails, right? But an HR software is something that everybody would use, right? From I think your security guard to your CEO, right? Because you want to track everyone's leave attendance, they need to view their payroll. So this is a software which is fundamental to the organization, right? Now, when we say the HR tech space is cluttered, yes, there are different types of competition, right? Of course, there are players who are doing directly what we are doing, so who are direct competitors, and it's great that multiple people are trying to solve the same problem. But the biggest competitor in terms of what's happening in HR tech, especially in India, is I think still paper and Excel sheet, right? Around 75 to 80% of organizations don't use any HR software. They are still using, and these are not small organizations. These are slightly bigger. These are 100 plus employees, and they are using such like archaic methods to manage. It is error prone because the people are doing it manually, and B, it's not sustainable, right? And there can be a lot of issues. The solutions don't talk to each other, and somebody is doing it manually. There is a guard who's just checking who has come, who has gone, and things like that, right? But also the space has a lot of point solutions, and so there are a lot of players who are only solving one aspect of HR. So you would see a lot of performance management solutions. You would see a lot of just ATSs, just solutions who are trying to solve for travel and expenses and things like that. But what we are seeing is that among the companies, there is a shift. They don't want to use multiple tools, because then they get into this issue of integration. It's either you integrate all your work tools, or you have to replicate the work, right? So whenever you have a new hire, you have to add that new hire details across the 10 tools. And whenever somebody exits, you again have to delete them from 10 tools, right? It's a lot of work. And if you're not doing it judiciously, then you risk not being compliant, because you are sharing sensitive data with some of your ex-employees, or your new employee does not know where he has to go to get the work done, right? That is why having an end-to-end solution really helps, because the HR tool is the one source of truth. That is the first place where you add your new employees, where you remove your exiting employees from. And once you do that, if that automatically ensures that the employee is part of whatever software or whatever module they have to be part of, right? Then you don't have to replicate the work. So that is why we say that we are not an HR tech tool, we are a work tech tool. So we don't, it's not just HR that we are solving for, we are ensuring that we are providing a software using which our clients and their employees can do whatever work they have to do. So OKR, task management, all of that is covered in Qandle.
Very interesting. I think, Chayan, what you're talking about is a very holistic sort of a solution, right? I think where you're covering pretty much every single, point in the spectrum when it comes to, I think, everything to do with human resource in an organization, right? And I think that's very, very interesting as a proposition. I completely agree with you that, a large part of organizations continue to deal with a lot of silo-based systems, which are very inconsistent, right? The data doesn't necessarily come together. There's always a leakage that continues to happen, right? There's always inconsistency. You're always looking for that person who can continue to do that for the organization, right? So I can completely concur with you, right? And I think most importantly, your role is that of a risk management. There's a large part of that you're doing, right? Because what you said, right? Exposure to sensitive information, and especially in an ecosystem which we're kind of in right now, hybrid ecosystems are going to continue to be there. I think this becomes just so much more important that you have one dashboard, one single screen where you have a very clear visibility in terms of what's happening, what's not happening, right? Chen, one quick question on the feature side of it, right? Now you said task management, for example, right? Performance indicators for individual employees. Now, what my understanding of Qandle, when I look at it from a distance, is that this is something which is available for largely HRs, right? And this is more a reconciliation system. I think we've expanded the horizon of the conversation by you adding to see some of the features that help organizations do better, deliver better, right? Improve productivity in the process. What I want to understand is that, at a feature level, are there extensions, for example, that managers use to rank and rate their teams, to assign tasks, to ensure that these tasks get delivered on time? And this has I have a leading question to this, right? But I'd love you to answer this one, and then I'll come to the next question.
Yeah, sure. So Ashu, yes, we are not a tool for the HRs, right? It's a tool which helps the HRs in getting their work done, but we are built for the employees and the managers, because any HR tool will be successful only if the employees and managers adapt to it, right? And that way, yes, so managers can use the tool. They do use the tool. We have fully functional Android and iOS apps. So all our clients, when a client uses our tool, all their employees are using the tool, right? For their leave, attendance, OKRs, for just adding what they are working on, for sharing all that information with the team, everything, right? We have a collaboration module as well, which is like your organization's own Facebook, but it's of course much more protected and much more within the boundaries of your employees, and not open to the public, right? So it's a completely self-serve tool, and it is used by every employee, as I said, in our clients' organizations, and it just ensures that the HR's life is easier, because they don't have to spend a lot of time in getting this administrative work done, so that they can focus more of their time on the strategic aspects of managing people.
Interesting. Chayan, one big thing, right, and one big problem when it comes to say dealing with anything to do with HR, right? While of course it's a very, very sensitive area for all organizations, the biggest of all issues is that it's always considered to be a cost center, right? Now, which essentially means that it's very difficult for a founder, for a startup, to go out and crack good contracts very, very quickly, right? It's a very, very time-taking process. It could range anywhere between a quarter to 2 quarters, right? How are you dealing with that bureaucracy, right? Or given 2020 and what we've seen, right? There's a certain shift which has happened, and then today people are demanding for this, right? I would like to understand the cohorts as well in terms of what are the retention numbers, right? What percentage of them are paying customers? I'd love to understand some of these nuances, what you've been able to achieve in this time.
Sure. So we don't have any free plans. All our customers are paying customers. We charge on a per employee per month basis, and we have I think I haven't checked the latest numbers, but the last I checked, it was 550 plus companies that we have which are currently paying us. To answer your question about how the pandemic affected us, so I would say that it was bittersweet. It was bad because we charge on a per employee per month basis, and a lot of our clients' businesses were affected. In fact, all businesses were affected. So a lot of people, a lot of companies let go of a lot of their employees. A lot of people were not hiring anymore. So that way the revenue declined a little. But the way it was a little positive for us was that a lot of companies realized the need for having cloud software because everything went remote, right? A lot of companies were forced to go remote overnight because of the lockdowns, and they had to continue to run their shop for say a year like that. So they realized the importance of having a cloud solution through which they can track the employees, they can assign the work, and that has been good for the whole cloud HR tech industry as well. So I think that is something that we see is there to stay. So now once people have realized that you can work remotely without a significant drop in productivity, I think, as you said, a lot of companies are adopting the hybrid model. So I think that is going to be really good for the HR tech industry. And about the cost center, so you're absolutely right? So HR is considered a cost center, but what we are seeing is that there is a paradigm shift in the role of HR in organizations. So while around 20-25 years back, it was just a very, very functional role, right? That you just have to ensure that you have the leave registers, attendance registers, the documents, and all of that properly done. And then in the 2000s, it became a little more supportive. So the HR was more involved in talent acquisition, a little bit of talent retention. But now we are seeing that HR is being considered as a strategic business partner, right? So that's why the name HRBP, so HR business partner. People have realized that HR can play an extremely important role in acquiring and retaining talent. So there's a lot of thought around data-driven decisions, people analytics, and our job is to provide that data to the HR and to the organization so that they can make better and smarter decisions. And that is why I think that that there has been a proliferation of HR tech tools, because people have realized that that people analytics especially and employee experience are extremely important. While a lot of companies talk about customer experience, but I think with time companies are realizing that it's first, employee experience is first, and that comes before customer experience. Also, one thing which is helping the whole HR tech industry is the war for talent. It's only going to get more intense, and now with remote work, the entire world has opened up, right? So people are hiring, companies are hiring people from any country. You are not restricted by your geography or by your city. For we ourselves, right? While we are not yet hiring from outside the country, but within India, we have employees in Jammu and Kashmir, we have employees in Tamil Nadu, like everywhere, right? This is so the entire talent ecosystem opened up for us when we went remote, and this is one of the primary reasons why we continue to stay remote, because we see that the value that the talent from these different geographies bring. Because otherwise, when we were in NCR, we were only hiring from NCR, right? And
I agree.
And one of the questions in the interview used to be that, okay, you stay like 2.5 hours away, how will you commute daily? And so all these have gone outside the window, right? And also, but I think at the same time, this comes with challenges, and the challenge is that how do you properly track people, right? How do you ensure that people are working? Because in the office, it's very easy. You can just go and see what they are working on. But in a remote work scenario, it's difficult. And the problem is there on the other side of it as well. Like, how do you keep your employees engaged? How do you solve their issues? So if say an employee is in office, they have some issue, they will just walk up to the HR and just say, hey, can you please solve it? And at the end of the day, again, they are meeting by the elevator and they can say, were you able to work on it? Right? That does not happen now. And you don't know if you are going to call your HR right away, if they are in a call or not. So synchronous communication is difficult because both parties have to be free, right? So you have to rely on asynchronous communication. So basically you raise a ticket or you communicate through Slack or WhatsApp or whatever, and then you wait for them to reply. That is why these tools, again, HR tech tools are very important because you can track, right? So we have a module which tracks employee issues. Now this module, the use of this module was around 10 to 20% before the pandemic hit, right?
Interesting.
After the pandemic happened, around 90 to 95% of our clients started using this, because this actually helped them start measuring and solving for employee issues. Another thing was one-on-one meeting, right? So again, this was a module that we had, which was it was being used. Of course, a lot of companies would have one-on-one meetings, but it was, say, the usage was 30-40%. But again, this also shot up to 90% plus after the pandemic, because you want, now the companies were making it more formal, right? Every manager has to have a one-on-one every month with all of their direct reports, because again, there is no FaceTime anymore, right? So you need to ensure that. So there are problems both ways, but of course, overall, I think it's good for HR tech. a lot of problems which can be solved by technology. Yeah, sorry.
That's a very interesting point that you highlighted, Chayan, right? And I think you're absolutely right. I think in an environment which is now going to be distributed, right? And I think that's and it's here to stay, right? I think it's just become so much more important that you have solutions that fill that gap. And I think these are some very interesting points that you highlighted, right? I think during COVID, in terms of how adoption of certain things has kind of shifted, right? And I think it's now kind of becoming a tendency. Right? I'm going to talk a little more about that, Chen, but before that, I'm going to talk a little about some of the new trends that are kind of setting in, right? Now, a lot of, for example, smaller players, right? And these are organizations which are not very, very large organizations. They're not MNCs. These are organizations with 20, 30, 40 people, right? They've also been looking at a lot of such systems, right? To ensure coordination, to ensure momentum. A lot of points that you kind of, for example, highlighted in your in the point that you made, right? There's this confidence building, for example, right? There's this engagement that becomes so much more important. Now, when it comes to, and this is more a price point question, right? Now, has COVID changed that for you as well, right? So while, of course, I understand that there is a certain set of players who can, adopt slightly higher price solutions, right? Slightly more holistic solutions. But then there is, and when we talk of India, right, a very large market is that of small enterprises, right? Small businesses who want similar solutions, who are not necessarily very accustomed to, the intricacies of solutions, right? They essentially want very elementary stuff, which could come at a lesser price, right? Is that something? Is that a challenge that you faced? Is that a quandary or a priority that you've struggled with internally? How has that been, right? Because, like I said, I mean, that's the opportunity that everybody's going after, which is the SMEs, MSMEs, right? And it's a huge market. And the good part is SMEs, MSMEs have been equally responsive to adopting a lot of those technologies. Yeah. What's been your experience in this time?
Yeah, so we are completely focused on the small and medium-sized businesses, right? That is our primary go-to market. That is not to say that we don't have enterprises. We have enterprise clients also, because the product is adaptable. But we primarily focus on SMBs because, as you said, the market is huge, the market is underserved, and there is a huge opportunity there. Now, to answer your question about the price, I would give an analogy of buying groceries, right? So when people buy grocery, usually they compare the prices of the basic stuff, right? You would check or compare the price of, say, potato, onion, eggs, things like these. So you cannot make money on these things. You have to be extremely competitive when you are pricing the core modules, right? So for us, that would be leave, attendance, payroll.
Interesting.
Because this everyone needs, and you have to be extremely competitive. And this is these modules are kind of a commodity, as you said. But when you look at some of the other modules that A, not everybody will have, or B, not everybody will have it to the extent that others will have. So, for example, as I said, one-on-one, right? These are value-add modules, the employee help desk module. And these are modules which companies can very easily put a monetary value to, right? You can very easily figure out that, okay, by having these one-on-one meetings, is my productivity going up? Are my employees happier? You can take these pulse surveys also, right? And if you are solving the employees' issues, are they staying longer? Are they more productive and things like that? So those are the modules where where you can price a little bit higher, because companies also realize the value. So value-based pricing can work in those modules. But having said that, India as a country, we are an extremely price-sensitive country. We love to bargain, and we do that with everybody, right? And that is just the market that we are operating in. So I think
interesting.
That has not changed per se because of COVID, but it has always been the case.
An honest confession, right? And I completely understand where you're coming from, right? I think, as a founder, you don't want to get off the table, right? Without leaving any business, right? Any pie of the business, right? And I think that's a difficult one, right? And I think, but the good part is that 2020 has brought a certain change, right? I think everybody's become serious about technology, and going forward, I think people will start to pay, right? Something that there was like almost a disbelief, right? That India will never pay, people will never pay. And when you're in a B2B environment, right? My longevity is a function of how much do I squeeze out of my partner, right? But I think a lot of that is now changing, right? And I think that's technologies like yourself are actually filling in that void, right? And I think necessity is now becoming clear in the process. So, a leading question to this one, right? Now, there are many players who've been funded in this space, right? We've seen some exceptional injection of capital in the last couple of years, right? Now, you've largely raised just about one round, right? And you, at a DNA level, you kind of constructed the company in a way where, it's always using the client's money or the customer's money to build the company, right? That essentially means that, you have very limited choices, right? You cannot really go out and splurge as much. You cannot really go out and sort of say brand as much. You cannot offer as many discounts, right? Because, when you have the money in the bank, right, you can defer certain things for a certain period of time, right? And that also helps you tackle your competition better, right? Now, in an environment like the one you are in, that's literally difficult, right? How has that been for you, right? Does it bring in more flexibility? Does this bring in a little more compulsion? How do you deal with it? Does that also become frustrating, right? Sorry, this was a question I should have asked a little later, but this is like, given that we're talking about this, I've brought this up. Would love to understand that, right? How is it for a founder to deal with some of these issues, right? When you know that the environment around you, there is influx of capital which has happened, right? And you will have to deal with it in some form or the other. There are going to be more people, there are going to be more feet on the street who are going to be talking about the product that your competitor has, right? It just makes it difficult for you, right? How do you prioritize when you are in a bootstrapped environment as a founder? I'd love to understand that.
Sure. So yeah, we did raise one round, but that was to build the product, because we knew that we were entering in HR tech, which is a mature market, and just to get a seat at the table, we would have to have a certain number of modules, right? I couldn't just go and say that I have only leave and attendance, I am building payroll, please take my product, right? Then nobody would give us a seat. So we needed to build that. So that is why we raised something in the beginning. But we have a very fundamental belief that especially in B2B, right, you don't need a lot of money. Of course, if you have having money is always good, right? Whether it's for a business or for a human, it's always good. But without that, I think we have been extremely scrappy, which has worked in our favor. We always have to prioritize our decisions. Like if there are 5 things that we can do with money, maybe we would have done 4 of those, right? Now without money, we have to just do 1 of those. But that also means that we do more research, because we have to just bet on the winning horse.
Right.
But it also gives us some freedom, right? With one of which is it gives us the freedom to experiment and fail. Once you have external capital, I think you have to grow at a certain rate. You have to show a certain growth. You have to show certain returns year on year. We don't have that pressure, so we have been able to experiment. We have been able to understand what the market is, and let's be honest, building a business takes time, right? What we hear in the media are exceptions. So exception, anything which is an exception, that makes good news, right? So this is not news that the sun rises in the east, because everybody knows that it will happen every day, right? News is something which is not happening every day. But a lot of us believe, or a lot of people start believing that is the norm in the startup world, and a lot of people jump into entrepreneurship thinking that I will build a unicorn in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. But those are exceptions, right? It takes time to build a business, and entrepreneurs should know that. And that has been our journey. We know that yes, it takes time. We are in it for the long haul. We are building a business. We are happy that we have created something out of nothing, for which companies are paying us, which is helping their employees, which is helping the companies track better, and it is actually solving a genuine problem for someone. And for us, I think that is the biggest hype. And yes, I think being an entrepreneur is tough, right? I wouldn't say that just because we are kind of bootstrapped, we have more worrisome moments, or we have more frustrating days than somebody who's funded. I have immense respect for all entrepreneurs, for everybody who has taken the decision to give up a more comfortable life to try and create something which they know will make their own lives a lot more difficult than what it could have been. So I have immense respect for everyone who's doing that. And yes, there are good days, there are bad days. There are more bad days than good days. I think it's almost like having a child, right? And in the initial years, right? On most days, you are just cleaning up the mess that the child has made. On very few days, they will give you...
I like that analogy.
Yeah, on very few days they will give you some moments of happiness. Suppose they suddenly start walking or that smile or something like that, but those moments are enough for you to forget all the effort that goes in all the other days, right? It's exactly same in a startup. You get these moments, some feedback from some
Interesting.
customer that you have made their day, you have solved something, some employee telling you that, hey, I had a great experience working there, I learned a lot, things like that. And those moments take away the pain of all these other moments which are usually happening on a day-to-day basis.
Chayan, it's an exceptional maturity that you kind of demonstrating. Like how I wish that many founders essentially can have similar thoughts, right, and a similar thinking structure and process, right. I think it's just so much more important to be so logical, right, to be so to the point and understand your role in the larger scheme of things, right. I think this is extremely heartening, right? The humbleness with which you're approaching this entire thing is extremely, heartening in many ways. Chan, I'm going to move into a very important question, right? Now, 2020 has also brought in a very different kind of a change, right? And this change is where organizations are now kind of contemplating and very seriously looking at, possibilities of engaging people in a task-based system, right? Which essentially means that we're not really going to be in an environment where they're going to be, longer-term contracts. It's going to be more contractual, right, in nature. You will have more people. It's going to be more gig, right? Let me put it this way, right? So you're going to have very specific assignments delivered, money paid, right? Depending on how you execute it. It's changing the game, right? And my sense is a good 30-40% of organizations' overall human resource requirement essentially is going to move in that direction. How important do you see yourself in an environment like this? Right? Because you've essentially been a system which is dealing with organizations which have certain people, right? There's a certain headcount, and you're continuing to improve their efficiency. In a task-based system, the output is very different, right? The matrix of output is very different. It's very short-lived, right? You might not engage with that individual again, right? You might not need to know that individual at a beyond his or her ability to perform that task, right? It's a very different environment. How do you see yourself dealing with this shift which is going to happen in the industry? It's already there, right? We're seeing a lot of that already happen. Our sense is, like I said, this is going to go on to expand further. How are you viewing the change and the shift, which we're going to, like I said, which is going to become a significant part of what we do in just about a couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the secret to kind of being relevant in a B2B environment is to keep on understanding what the market is demanding and continuing to give them that, right?
Sure.
And as you rightly said, that it's already there. The gig shift is already there. It's only going to get bigger. So we are already solving for it, right? So some things don't change. Of course, there won't be a monthly payroll anymore because it's a task-based payment. But you would still want to track what the person is doing. You would still want to assign a task. You would still maybe want to track their attendance. If they have, say, suppose there is a festival and you want, suppose you are a big retailer, right? And during Diwali, you want 300 additional people because you know that more people would come to buy. So you need to track when they came, when they left. And all of that can happen again through technology, through the mobile phone, because it can be geo-fenced. You can see that, okay, this person entered the store at this point in time, they left at this point in time. You can assign them tasks that, okay, this is the task that they did. And then you pay on the basis of the number of hours, right? And another thing that you would have to do, again, especially in a customer-facing role, is that you would need to do some kind of verification. You don't want to just give the just hire anybody, right? Even if it's for a gig work, because after all, it's your brand on the line. So there also technology will play a very important role. So we are already solving for these. We have clients who work with gig workers, who work with contractors, who work with employees from staffing companies, and we are already solving for them. But yes, we see that this shift is happening. And again, for us, what has always worked is having clear dialogue with our customers. So our product roadmap is extremely driven by what customers want. So they tell us that, okay, this is what we want. This is what we are trying to solve. Why don't you build this and things like that? And that is how we develop our product roadmap. And that has actually helped us a lot in staying relevant and in actually solving for what the market is demanding.
Very interesting. So, and towards the end of our conversation, right, what are the next 2 years like? I'd love to understand that. I would have, it's becoming cliche, right? I'd love to ask you a five-hour question, but I think that's I think now not how you can visualize, the complexity, the emerging complexity, right, within the economy. Would love to understand what are the next 2 years like. What are your thoughts around it? How are you prioritizing yourself? What are some of the new features that we see in the product? Any fundraising plans? I think I'd love to capture all of that in this question.
Sure. So in terms of product roadmap, as I said, that we just have next 3 to 5 months product roadmap. Of course, we have certain strategic projects which we want to take up. The idea for us, as I said, is to move more towards work tech. We want to become one software that companies need to do everything related to their work, right? It's not only HR. HR is just a part of it.
Entry point.
So we are building things which will help us more become a work tech tool rather than just remain an HR tech tool. So for example, one of them would be just having an onboarding chatbot, right? Where a new employee joins and all their details are verified automatically, their bank details, PAN, Aadhaar, etc. The second one is an AI-based feedback tool where employees can talk, and if they have any issues, they can just directly tell the tool, and that tool, and it's completely anonymous, right? So the employees can talk without any fear, and the company gets to know that what they're working on, what are the issues and things like that. With respect to fundraising, what we have heard, and again, I have a network of other founders that I speak to, and I think it's very important for every entrepreneur, because it's a very lonely and difficult journey, and only others who are traversing on the path are the only ones who understand what it is like. Nobody else would. Your family, friends, well-wishers, they won't understand. So, and from that network, what I have heard and what I believe to be true is that fundraising is a full-time job. It is extremely difficult, and it is, of course, somebody has to give a lot of time and effort to do that. But so for us, we are two co-founders. Both of us are required in running the business. So we are not averse to fundraising, but again, we are not giving that full time either, because we don't have that time. So I see fundraising as something. So suppose you have a horse, right, and you use that horse for a race. Fundraising is somebody coming to you and saying that, okay, I'll give you these protein or something, these kind of food which will help horse go faster. Correct. So if that happens, nobody would say no, because your horse is getting more fuel to run faster and increase your odds of success. But if that does not happen, what I'm trying to say is that I am not going out and just telling everybody that, hey, please give my horse some food. Right? Of course, there are conversations because we learn a lot from the investors. The investors give a lot of feedback also, which I think is extremely good. So these conversations help us gain insights into the market, which we otherwise would not have. And we also understand a lot about what the investors are thinking, what they want to invest in, and things like that. So in terms of fundraising, again, as I said, that we are cash profitable, and since we are a subscription business, we always have visibility into what we are going to make for the next 2 to 3 months, right? So at least the next 2 to 3 months. And that helps us plan our cash flows also. So fundraising, like the short answer would be that if it happens, really happy. But if it does not happen, we'll still continue to build, because I don't have a runway that I need to raise within the next 2 months or my business will shut down, because we have planned in such a way that we are sustainable.
And that's an awesome comfort, right? To have, Chayan, when you have, cash flows which can support your journey and your vision, it's extremely, extremely comforting, right? In many ways. And I think you can make that choice. I think you can negotiate deals much better. Vis-a-vis, I think anybody else who's constantly flying on external fuel, right? And say substantiating, growth, by say deep discounting and a bunch of other things, right? Because you have to sort of demonstrate that speed, right? It's not necessarily correct and right on many occasions. So I think this is a fair point. Right? Completely understand where you're coming from. Chayan, last question in this conversation. Cliched, but important, right? Something that you highlighted, that every founder has a very unique journey, right? My belief is every founder's journey is very unique, right? He or she has something or the other to share, always, right? And they bring in a very unique perspective every single time. I have had the opportunity of learning just so much more from founders when you speak with them, right? Because there are nuances that, I particularly like deep thinking, right? And many founders, do that because they dissect, find the nuances in the game just so beautifully, right? If you were to give that advice or suggestion, right, to many founders who are going to be watching this, right, what would that advice and suggestion be? I'd love you to put it across here.
I think this is something that I have learned, that whatever advice anybody gives is based on their own experience, right? So just don't blindly follow their advice. You have to understand what their situation was. Right. At that point in time. There are a lot of variables that go into making something work for them, right? If you follow the same things, it may not work for you. So my advice would be that take every advice with a pinch of salt, including this one, right? So
Interesting. Chayan, with that, we come to an end of this conversation. Thank you so much for doing this with us. I think I've enjoyed this conversation, right? I am just overwhelmed with the sharpness that the younger generation and the newer founders have, right? I think it's overwhelming with the seriousness with they're kind of solving for this market, right? The intensity, the depth is just so heartening to see, right? One thing which stands out in this conversation, right? I think while you, of course, continue to talk about tech and, your aspirations to kind of solve for that, and that again has its own challenges, right? There are a bunch of other players in that, right? I think a large part of your role is going to be in risk management, right? For organizations, right? Because with distributed teams, trust issues which I can reading about across right, left, and center, right? Of people moonlighting. I think there are a lot of these nuances that need to be covered, and I think there is no other way but to do it through technology. And I think I see a lot of your role, for example, emerging and becoming critical as far as that is concerned. Right? I think longevity of organizations is going to be dependent on continuity and focus of employees. And I think without tech to manage that and map that is going to be just so much more difficult. Markets are going to become far more competitive. Organizations' ability to respond to these challenges, I think, will largely be dependent on how fast they are in terms of adopting this technology, right? And a lot of what you're kind of providing in the process. And like I said, right, I think your job becomes so much more important, critical at many levels. We wish you, Chayan, all the very best for your journey. Look forward to having you with us much sooner. This is a never-ending topic. India is a complex market, right? You have a lot of cultural and behavioral tendencies to sort of, take care of, right? Tech can solve for some of them to start with, right? But I think it's always interesting to see how all of this comes together, right? How do you build in those smaller nuances into the overall product play, right? I think that's always interesting. Like I said, right? So look forward to having you with us much sooner, Chayan. Thank you so much for doing this. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks a lot, Ashu. Likewise, I enjoyed this conversation a lot. Hope to speak with you again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Bye. See you.